Hey, I'm Trish, and you're listening to the Talk Carby to Me podcast.
So there's this quote that I come across that I love, and I think applies to fitness very well. It comes from the book Atomic Habits by James
Ooh,
Clear.
that's one of my favorites.
Such a good book. And the quote is, people get so caught up in the fact that they have limits that they rarely exert the effort required to get close to them. I think one of the things that I try to do with all my clients, especially in the beginning, is teach them what good effort actually is, and how important that is when you have these goals, when you want to make these changes, these transformations, and see yourself as an improved version of yourself.
Yeah.
So, as far as going into bodybuilding, weightlifting, just getting into the gym, what are some things that like led you down that path to start that out?
I feel like you definitely don't ever start out that way. Like, that is an evolved thought to be the most improved version of yourself, right? Normally, when you start out, you're kind of trying to dig yourself out of the worst, right? You think that something bad is going on and this is the way to fix it, or this is the only way out is through. So I think in regards to bodybuilding is when you get to that point, right? Where you're switching over from, I just need to get away from this bad situation, or I hit rock bottom and I'm fed up, to, okay, what else can I do? You know? And I think that when I finally crossed over to that like threshold is when I decided like bodybuilding was going to be for me.
Rock bottom's a very, very important place, or start where you feel like everything is like really low. What was that? What did you have an experience like that?
I have had several, so many experiences of I can't take anymore. And in hindsight, it's I couldn't take anymore, but at the time it's like, why me? That feeling of like everything is being done to me to push me down. I can't get any further. I have to pick back up. Yeah, that's what got me into a weight loss journey. Um I would say that like bodybuilding feels like a comeback from that. But I've definitely been at rock bottom. I know it well.
Yeah, it's a good. I've always, and certainly hindsight is always 2020. I've always appreciated the rock bottom moments, that we have. And when I talk to people and they're telling me, "Hey, I feel really low. I'm very depressed. My wife left me. My relationship falling apart. I'm broke. I lost my job." Insert something that happened in life. I always listen. And again, this depends on the relationship that I have with the person. So if it's like a friend, I'll be a little bit more direct. If it's a client, kind of laying this on me, I usually will, depending how long or what kind of rapport that we've got, my answer return will, you know, be based on that or the severity of it. But I'm always like, cool, feel it for a few days, be sad about it, do what you need to do, whatever processing, and then just view it as a good thing and tell yourself a different story about it and use it as fuel, right? Bad things are going to happen all the time, right? Humans are going to make mistakes. They're going to do shitty things. Someone might screw you over. You might get taken advantage of. Use that once you're at a stable place, use that as motivation, right? So many times, so often we look at the gym world and like, I'm not motivated or I don't have the motivation or anything like that. And it's like, well, you have all these things in your life that piss you off and make you sad. Use them as a source of fuel and tell yourself a different story about them to get some kind of reward out of it because you're going to feel that way regardless. A lot of times for me in my workouts, I'll think about a lot of the bad things that have happened to me. And that's not saying that I've had like an incredibly traumatic life, but trauma is relative, to people's experience. So I take that with me, and that's what I think about. So during the rest of my days, or the rest of my day after the gym. Right? Largely, I'm pretty calm mind. I've kind of worked it out in my head as I'm going through my exercises. And sometimes, I'll embellish stuff a little bit, like, haha, this person said I couldn't do this set, and just kind of have fun with it. But I think it's so important to keep that motivation going. And especially when you have those rock bottom moments, it's like, okay, good. This means that you can only go up from here. And this means that I can get better in some way. I can improve somehow.
Yeah, and it's that mindset that separates you from the rest. It's that mindset that there is something after this that is it just speeds up success. It speeds up the process of achieving your goals because I feel like I'm not like that. I feel like I am super dramatic. So when I am at bottom, I'm like, this is never going to end. Something else is going to happen. And I think that just recently in my life, I'm 29 years old, which is like scary to think about that I'm just coming to this evolution, to this realization that I have a future after this bad thing, that this bad thing could turn into something great that I'm not even expecting. It's like, how many times do you have to be told by the universe or God or whoever you believe in that one path that you wanted to take is you can't go down that path because there's something better the other way. If you just made a different turn or something, there is something better. And it's like a big part of it is just growing up. Um, but I think that fitness teaches you that lesson among so many other ones, to just have that shift in mindset. Like, how can I make this into a good thing rather than this thing sucks?
Yeah. The the occurrence of shitty situations, I've always handled it what seems to be pretty uniquely. When I notice that things in my life aren't exactly going the way that I'd like them to, I generally just ride it out and just ride the downward spiral into the ground so that way it's destroyed. Like if I'm in a relationship, whether it be an actual relationship with someone else, whether it be a job, whether it be a certain kind of routine, I'll like hammer it into the ground. Like I will ride it out and they're like, okay, that's completely devastated. Like there's no choice but to do something else and go in a different direction. And also, like, I just take it as if I'm putting all my effort into something and it's not working out, there's probably a reason. And at some point, I'll have to accept that that's the reason. And I apply that to pretty much every situation. So a lot of times, like, I have, I'll have things that just aren't going well. Like, I started my own business, right? And that's interesting. And like when you have a conversation with someone and you're like, hey, I'm an entrepreneur. I started my own business. Here's what I do. And like, oh, that's so good. That's great. You must be doing so well. It seems like you're doing great. And now you have like in my situation, you have like this podcast and you meet all these other fitness professionals and stuff like that. And it's like, yeah, that's what it appears to be. But a lot of times, a lot of those days, like they're complete disasters. I just don't spend too much time stressing about it because one way or another, it's going to work out. Uh, I have probably the sentence I tell myself the most when things get like really haywire. It's like, I'll figure it out. And largely, I just keep going, and I usually figure it out.
Yeah, I am. I'm in the middle of reading The Power of Now. I have it right behind me. I don't know the author. I don't know how to say his name. Eckhart Tolle. Um, it's an amazing book, and I wish I would have read it on prep. Going through prep is probably one of the hardest things to do mentally, just as a person, and putting your body through what your body is going through just sends you spiraling. But one of the things that you said is writing it down and beating it to death and kind of just like letting it be. And one of the concepts of the book is to separate your mind and observe your thoughts as none other than somebody who is observing their thoughts. Like it's two separate beings going on inside your head. And one of the biggest lessons that they teach you throughout prep is to just pick the next small task and build, because it's like day by day. You don't know if you're going to wake up and be a raging lunatic. You don't know if you're going to wake up and get everything done. Disaster might hit. Even during prep, I got into a car accident when I was like 10 weeks out. And maybe 15 minutes after I got into the car accident, somebody else hit me, like my car. And it was like absolutely miserable. And I went home and I must have written out like 10 to 15 pages of just what is cycling through my brain right now, because it was a lot of give up. This is a sign you should not be competing, blah, blah, blah. But then it turned into, wait, the accident could have turned into you not being able to walk. You were still able to go to the gym, even though you didn't have a car to get you there. You could have went to the gym today, or, you still are financially okay to keep going and actually compete and things like that. So it's like being able to separate what you're thinking from your character, who you are, is something that keeps you going, like, immensely. It's insane to be like your own cheerleader. Like, okay, you think this, but I've seen this happen, so this can happen. Keep going. Let's find out.
Let's find out is such an important statement. You have those quotes, and the public speakers are like, so many people stop doing the thing right before they're about to succeed. And I think if you look at most things, especially in our industry, a lot of the people that are successful, if you hear their stories, like it's been a long time. Like we see the finished product, but we don't see like the underlying years prior or the build up to that. When you write things out, it becomes super important, and it's something that kind of sticks out. So I'm not one for affirmations. I'm not one for being my own cheerleader. When other people cheerlead me, I actually don't like it. It does largely nothing for me. However, I'll write a post-it with a goal on it, or something that stands out, and it'll just be on my fridge every day. I look in the mirror. Or look in the mirror. I say mirror because it used to be on my mirror, but I moved it to my fridge because I usually get ready, shower, brush my teeth all in the dark, as just an old habit. So it's on my fridge now, so I can see it. And it varies. Sometimes it's just like, hey, stick with it. Lately, it's a post-it that says, "Become so hot they can't say no." And as far as everything that I'm doing with my businesses and my podcast, it's just a reminder that's like, hey, provides so much value that it becomes almost impossible to not listen to it, learn something from it, help someone improve, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, and it's also a great reminder of an ex version of you, right? Even if you wrote it yesterday. It's like you look at it and you're like, no, okay, I'm gonna make whoever put that up there proud. That's my this little whiteboard in the back. You can't see what's written on it, but that's my every Monday I come in here, I write down my goals for the week. And if I come back in on Friday and I see that, I only checked off two or three, like how would Monday me feel? Because I owe nothing but to that girl, whatever past version of me it is that I'm trying to heal or make proud. But it serves as a good reminder to put it out and make it physical and bring it to life, really, because a thought is just a thought, you know.
Yeah. You did a very brave thing in the last 24 hours. You put up the anonymous link.
Oh my. I did not know that it was super brave until this morning. Like last night, I was sitting with my sister and I was like, I'm just so surprised by all the genuinity and the authenticity that is coming through this thing. Nobody has been creepy. There has been no weird things going off. And then all hell broke loose while I was asleep.
Yeah, and I can only imagine, and I'm sure you didn't post all of them, but some of the ones that I did see
Of
that you
course not.
posted. Why is everyone so concerned with your dating life?
My Instagram has never been concerned with my dating life. And maybe it is because I very recently started talking about, I don't want to say any kind of sexuality, but like my friends think that I am an asexual. Like I just don't really talk about dating. I don't talk about I just talk about the gym. So I think that once I started to just say something, anything, people were like, "Oh, okay, she's not in a relationship and just hiding him. Oh, okay, she's not like asexual. She is interested in men and single."
They're just waiting for the post where you soft launch him and it's like his wrist in the picture. That's it.
The funny thing is I don't know him. I don't know him well at all. I've had maybe a conversation or 2 with him. He is just somebody I think is attractive. I know nothing about him.
That's funny. It's kind of like you've kind of like this now you've created this like underlying plot that like has people hooked. And they're like, we need the next steps.
It's great. It's great. If this turns out to be my future husband, this will be the greatest love story of all time.
I hope so. Everyone loves that kind of story.
Yeah.
So when you mentioned going through prep, where were you when you started prep? Like, were you entry level into the gym? Had you already been working out for a while? Like, what was
I
that?
had already been working out for 4 years. I started in 2019, a month before the world shut down.
Good times.
Yeah, amazing times.
So when that happened, I was in North Carolina. I know every kind of state kind of had it going differently. So during that time, like, what were your workouts like?
So I started off just like in a Planet Fitness by myself. But I noticed that I was kind of just like bopping around and doing whatever, and I wanted some kind of structure. So I started going to a personal training gym, which was like an independently owned gym. So they were able to be open because when I would be in there, it would just be me and my trainer, nobody else. The place wasn't really that big. But then around April, that was in the beginning of March, and then around April, they were getting like really strict on everything and we were not allowed to be in there at all. So the guy who owned the gym sent us home with equipment. And then he would write out our workouts, he would write out our meal plan, and we would do the workouts at home with the equipment. And it was like perfect timing because the weather was breaking and we were all going stir crazy in the house. Um, and then I actually head down to Florida. My brother, who lives in North Carolina, was living in Florida at the time, and I drove him down there with his stuff. And I would do like beach workouts. Like I would just YouTube them and do them on the beach. It was like crazy for the endorphins. Um, and it wasn't until I came back that I really like got into it. Went through maybe 3 months where I had lost like the bulk of my weight. When I first started out in February 2019, I was 184 pounds. So I had gotten down to, my goal weight was like 125 or something by 2020. It took a while.
How tall are you?
I am 5'3",
Okay.
which is an assumption. I'm not sure. I could be 5'2" or 5'1", but I think that I'm 5'3".
That's a pretty big year.
Which one?
Like to go from
2019.
to start at like 185 and to get down to 125.
Yeah, the first, I would say, like, 30 pounds, I can't say was done healthy at all. The whole gym thing came out of a really bad breakup, an eviction from my apartment, and my dog, like, dying all in the same week right before I had started.
Whew.
So I spent the week before I started going to the gym and maybe the first, like, 2 or 3 weeks while I was at the gym, just drinking and doing nothing else besides that, and it was, like, a lot. I changed a lot in like 3 months.
Yeah, that's a lot to go through, especially the dog. Like,
The dog is the only thing that matters, actually.
yeah.
Yeah, it was tough. I don't mean to be dramatic, but my father passed away when I was 21 years old, and I don't know what it is about the dog, and I don't know if I'm being dramatic, but watching the dog pass away was, like, so much harder. It's like they you can't leave them because they don't know what they're doing there, and they're just getting all these treats and all this chocolate, and it had to be the saddest thing that I've ever gone through. He was also only 5, which was, like, so sad.
Oh man, that's rough.
Yeah,
Yeah, the death of a pet is oddly traumatizing.
so traumatized. I had never been through it before.
Yeah, I've had my parents like to rescue dogs. So in my youth, I was familiar with this process. of having like a middle-aged dog, and then the dog hangs out for several years, then the dog is just old. But I didn't really have. I guess it's different then because I guess when you're you know in middle school and early high school, it's not quite your dog. It's not quite your pet. Like it's just something that lives in your house.
Yeah.
Um, but I was dating a girl years ago. She had a cat, and there was always this other cat that stayed on our doorstep. And there was like one blizzard one day. This was when I was living in Connecticut, and you're like, "Oh, let's rescue the cat." Like, I guess we'll save this fucking cat, like whatever. And so I mean, the cat, we take care of the cat, bring it to the vet. Like it was a stray. I'm like, okay, we got this. We'll take care of him. He's all dirty. Clean him up. Get him some food. In my head, I'm like, yeah, we'll release him at some point, or he'll probably run away. Odds are, because he's probably coming from somewhere. We end up keeping the cat for a few years. We break up. She keeps the cat because it's buddies with her cat. Then one day, randomly, she's like, I'm getting rid of the cat, and I'm like, no, 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 no. Like, don't just, they're gonna put him down. Like they're gonna kill this thing. So gives me the cat. And then this is how I ended up as a cat. It's the only cat I've ever had in my life. I'm not a cat person. Fortunately, my cat Walter was a great cat. Love the guy. Also, human names are important for pets. Just want to put that out there.
I was literally just getting ready to say that it's my favorite thing ever.
Yeah, he's a great cat, and he had like vampire fangs. So when his mouth was closed, like his teeth, it was like a saber tooth tiger. It's the coolest thing ever. Anyway, so I have me and Walter. Um, we're kind of going through life, and then he starts to like wither away a little bit, and that was like devastating for me, which is weird because I'm like not a cat person. Like I didn't mind him, but that was like a truly traumatic experience going through that, and then you just see your animal just like wither away in front of you. That was rough.
Yeah. How old?
No one knew how old my cat was. I want to say the vet's best guess was somewhere between like 18 and 20.
Oh, okay. So it had a long life.
Yeah, yeah. I didn't have him for 18 years, but I had him for a couple. But it was just strangely like gut wrenching when that happened. Like I was a mess for a few hours, and I know like it doesn't sound like the way I just described that, and then for me to say I was a mess for a few hours, like I have a quick rebound time emotionally. So that's a lot for me because usually if something dramatic happens, it's like 5 minutes. I'll fret about something, and then I'm right back in the game. But yeah, that was a tough one for sure.
That's funny because I too am not a cat person. I love dogs, but I have a cat. I just got her not even a year ago. Um, yeah, but I love her. She's like if something happens to her, I will be devastated.
Yeah, I think the reason we got along was because every other person's cat up to that point in my life that I like interacted with always tried to beat the shit out of me, or attack me, like
Yeah.
with like unprovoked. Like I'd just be sitting there. Next thing I'm getting slashed or pawed or something like that. So, but that one didn't. Like that one, I would sit watch TV. It would just sit next to me. Obviously, it did
Yeah, they
cat
are
things. Like
scary. They're scary. They're just unpredictable.
yeah, mine just was like it was like having a dog in the house. So that was pretty cool. So yeah, so taking that into going from that traumatic time and kind of learning about yourself and like regrowing, what what were the things that were motivating you coming out of that as you were going into finishing the journey of losing the weight?
Um, I want to say revenge. It's always
Mm,
kind of a motivation for me. At the time, I had gone into the gym because my ex was so good in the gym. I don't want to say so good in the gym, but like so he was obsessed with the gym. He was a gym rat. And I just wanted to be better at it than him. Um, yeah, but it turned into like I don't know. It would be like I just have naturally like bigger quads, and I would like go in and see myself in the mirror and just be like, all right, we're gonna do this workout because I have bigger quads than my ex. Like it's crazy inner dialogue. I'm making up stories in my head. Really just got me through it. And then once you start seeing the changes, it's just you're on go from there. You don't need any motivation once you start to see a physical difference or somebody gives you some type of compliment.
it does become addicting. I like the revenge narrative. In my experience working with people, and they come to me and they might have a goal. I always try to find out like the emotional reason behind it. one, if you know anything about sales, it's all an emotional decision anyway, so you should kind of be good at finding that out. However, when it comes to long-term progression, depending what their target is, there's always something for everyone that like lies underneath emotionally that you can kind of tug on that string a little bit. Revenge, like the revenge body, happens to be one of them, and you see it in society, pop culture. It's mentioned a lot. Oh, I'm going to get this revenge body, or I'll show you. You look at someone like Lady Gaga, whose entire career was sparked by getting revenge on her. I don't know if it was her fiance or her boyfriend, but that turned out pretty well for her. So I always appreciate that because I think it's a more honest thing. There's also something to it of like Patrick Bet David talks a lot about like picking your enemies correctly. And even though like it's one of those things like you were just talking about where it's kind of like in your head and like it's not necessarily like a battle or a competition. If you pick someone to compete with that you might have some qualities that you aspire to, it makes you have to rise to the occasion and grow that much more, as opposed to picking a target or an enemy that might not bring the best out of you or might not be at a level where that'll allow you to get the growth that you need or you're aiming for.
For sure. Um, I just I don't know if it's some kind of trauma or PTSD, but all I hear in the back of my head is the one single line that made me compete because I had been thinking about it for a few years. Honestly, probably since I hit my goal. I was like there was bodybuilders all around me. My brother was a gym rat and all his friends were competing constantly. And yeah, one single line can send you, and it is real, but you try to find some other why, you know? You try to find you have to because the revenge will kind of send you into just negativity. And y- when it comes down to like character, I don't want to be that person, you know what I mean? I don't want to be the look at me, I did this better because you didn't believe in me or whatever the case may be.
It's a good catalyst. Once you hit that target, you definitely want to move away from that because it can flip into this thing where like it puts so much pressure on you that you almost have to be like, just use the Lady Gaga story. You almost have to be like that massive of a success for that specific goal to be the thing. Um, so it's a very very interesting thing. What's the one line, if you don't mind me asking? Like, is that too personal?
It's not. It was just somebody saying to me, and you can try and compete and win a title to prove me wrong, but you'll step on stage for no reason.
Hmm.
I would say though that I hear it as like a trauma response, but it very quickly flipped from I'm going to show you that I can do this to I owe it to me.
I love it. I have one of those too. It's a text message, and it just says, I actually have a screenshot of it. I revisit it frequently. It just says, "This is why I ghosted you." Period. And that one's fired me through some great sessions, some great progress. Most of the time, when I look back at it, I kind of laugh now. But it had such a at that time, it had such a big effect on me that was like we could have stormed the gates of hell. Um, so I will always cherish that.
Yeah, one of my other ones is if leaving you is the biggest mistake I ever have to make, I'm willing to risk that. And it's just like, I feel like since then I've been on a season of stand on it, you know?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, you got some harsh fellows over there.
Yeah, I mean, we're from Philly though, so that's not like the
Mm,
meanest thing you could possibly say.
yeah, you guys are a rough breed.
Yeah,
I'm familiar with how they treat their sports teams, so I can only imagine how you
yeah.
guys treat each
It's
other.
scary. It's scary out here.
Yeah. So, how long was your prep?
I prepped for 22 weeks. A typical prep is 16 weeks. But your first prep, they always suggest you go a little bit longer. But by the time I contacted a coach, it was like 16-week prep starts in 6 weeks, but I would prefer you to start like 2 to 3 weeks earlier. So why not just start now?
Great, great tactic there. So,
Yeah. So that's what we did. We started prep in June 27th, actually, on June 27th.
so what was your starting, what were your starting like body metrics versus like where it was when you stepped on stage?
Not very different. I was 130 pounds when I started prep. Our biggest concern was I had great quads, I had great shape, and I was leaner than most people start their prep. I just obviously needed some glute growth, I needed some more definition. And my marketability was something that I knew that I was going to have to work on a lot because the federation that I'm in is not just about symmetry and muscle and things like that. It's also about your stage presence and are you good at catwalk, and it's fitness and it's fashion and it's fun, so it's not just a bodybuilding competition. So the way that we pose is almost like a dance, or a trance, I guess you would call it. But I knew that that was going to be like one of my biggest things. I knew that the workouts were going to be tough and I was going to have to push myself, but it wasn't ever a concern to me. I knew that I would have to get better with my nutrition, and doing the walk. Posing was the worst part of prep by far.
Did you dance when you were younger?
No. Specifically, no. Like, I a crazy thing about me that I don't talk to a lot of people about. I went to a performing arts school from when I was in first grade all the way until I graduated high school. One of my best friends in high school was actually the first season winner of America's Got Talent. I went to high school with Nate Morris's son from Boys to Men, like a very prestigious, like, performing arts school, but they knew to like keep me away from the dance room. And I actually, like, when I was younger, wrote music, and the first song that I have ever wrote and like recorded by myself was a different rendition of Frank Sinatra's "I Won't Dance," as I can't dance. So I cannot dance. I can't walk in heels. Like, I was known for, if I had to do like some kind of dance, I was slapping the girl next to me. Like, I am so uncoordinated. It's comical.
That's funny. So I can imagine um, going into bodybuilding, right? When you get to that point where it's time to pose and it's time to go through your routine, like that must have been incredibly tough. I mean, looking at it, I can't do it. Like I've worked out with a couple bodybuilders here and there, and like I'll mimic them jokingly, and like I'll get like a cramp or like I just don't move that way and stuff like that. So it's pretty funny. So um, I would imagine that's probably got to be one of the toughest parts of it.
Yeah, the toughest part.
Yeah. So how much went into getting yourself ready, right? So you talked about like your nutrition had to be better. How much did it have to change for the show?
Significantly. I mean, my entire world changed. And it hasn't been the same since. Um, yeah, it was. At first, I was flexible dieting. My coach said that specifically because I was a certified nutritionist and I was a personal trainer, like, she would trust me to make the right decisions and just give me my macro count. She gave me some pointers, like, obviously sweet potatoes are going to be less grams of carbs, and I have you at a pretty low carb right now, so that you can have a little bit more food if you're hungry or things like that. Um, but I would say maybe starting at 8 weeks out, it was you're eating the same thing every single day. Um, Breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So, and then once you get 4 weeks out, they start to lower calories significantly, lower carbs significantly. And then at that time, it's just like all hell breaks loose mentally with the nutrition.
Yeah, how low did you bring your macros?
So my calories were at 1,300, the lowest, and that was maybe the last 2 weeks. I was at eating 155 grams of protein a day, 100 grams of carbs, and I maybe 40 grams of fat. My fat was just because of, again, of the federation, my fats weren't so important because my body fat percentage didn't need to be a certain percent on stage. I needed to have a little bit of a figure, if that makes sense.
Okay. So when you say federation, like what federation are you in, and what's the difference with some of the other ones that you commonly see?
So the big one is NPC, and then it branches off from there. The OCB is the natural bodybuilding competition. I am with WBFF, and it stands for World Beauty, Fitness, and Fashion. Um, and the way that it differs is they have it marketed as there's nothing like it, and truly there isn't. I mean, just this year alone, they just opened up a category for inked models, so it's like bodybuilding but with tattoos. So it's just very different. It's not traditional. Traditional bodybuilding is, you either go two routes. You go NPC where, they don't drug test, or you go OCB where they drug test by taking a lie detector. But their posing is even still very similar. They hit their quarter turns, they hit their pose, they hit their quarter turn, they hit their pose. But for us, it's kind of a like your the way that you turn into your quarter turn also counts. Like you should turn into your quarter turn, but you should turn into it flattering whatever side you're trying to show next, or and it's just constant flow of movement. Whereas other bodybuilders, they hit their pose and they keep it that way until the MC says the next order or whatever they call it.
A lie detector test to achieve the result of drug testing is an interesting concept.
It makes no sense to me.
Yeah.
Why not drug test?
Yeah, that's a very weird, like, what if you're just really good at lying? Like, those things can be beat.
Oh, for sure. For sure. I think that when people go into the OCB, there's just a level of respect with it, that it's like they really do pride themselves in being natural, right? And they're not going to be as big. And you can go to an OCB show and see that they're not as big as the guys that are competing as in NPC, but they do take pride in it. If I'm going to be honest, it's a body type that I prefer. Um, I love all body types. Enjoy going to OCB shows a little bit more, just because I know that, I mean, and then that's not to say they don't take creatine or creatine. I would pronounce it wrong, or something like that. They're just not on any kind of, steroid or anything like that. But I don't know much about it. And I feel like I might get attacked a little bit for that because I am a little ignorant to it. But I also train women who, you know, we don't ask those questions. We don't really care that much.
Yeah, I know a few people that dabble in the arts, as they're called. I have an interesting take on steroids. I think, like, especially in sports, Olympics, everything, like, we should have a category where you can just there's no limit.
I mean, if it's going to be available,
Yeah, yeah, and let's just find out how fast a human can run. Like, let's find out, like, how high they can jump, like, how fast they can swim. Like, forget the nuance or, like, this guy, like, "Oh, I need to be under, like, a certain" no, like, just load the fuck up and let it rip, and let's see what this category looks
lab
like.
rats.
Kind of, but and also, like, and I feel like it's so stigmatized, and certainly there are a lot of health risks to it, and certainly you don't want to be in a situation where it's like, hey, here are the rules of the construct within the game that we're playing, and you're just not allowed to take it, whether it be professional sports, boxing, Olympic sports, stuff like that. But, like, make another category, and then, like, let's see how good we can make it, and then, like that would lead people to actually focus on them and develop better steroids that maybe don't have all those harmful side effects and whatnot. I think injecting yourself to give you an edge in achieving a result that you want gets stigmatized, and it's hypocrisy at, like, the highest level, because there's another injection that's recently hit the scene that you can take that brings you to your goal. And it's one of those things that, obviously they don't drug test for it. And if you've been following, if you've watched any of the NFL games, if you watch TV, you've seen the commercials 100 times. Ozempic, Wegovy, all the weight loss drugs, the GLP-1 agonists. There's tons of them now. They're exploding in popularity. And it's the same thing. It's you're injecting yourself with something to achieve a result that you wouldn't ordinarily be able to achieve. And I view them as the same. But going into the steroid conversation, like, let's just see how far we can take it.
Yeah. I think the argument might be a little bit more based on a shortcut versus an aid, because you can very well take steroids to achieve a goal, but it also requires, work and maintenance and things like that. And it's like the argument comes from, are you using it as a shortcut or are you using it as a supplement, something to help you out?
Yeah, it's a very nuanced discussion there. But my thoughts on it. I mean, I've never taken anything, so like I said, I'm not an expert on that at
I,
all.
by no means, I know nothing. I am so ignorant to it that it's almost embarrassing. I just act like it's,
Yeah, in the past, before I moved here, I have had clients that were doing cycles. And the thing that I enjoyed about this, the client on like in the middle of a cycle can take a fucking beating in the gym and just bounce right back. It's an incredible thing to see. Whereas like your normal gen population person, um, you know, they're going to need more time to recover. Usually, obviously, that's going to vary on like fitness level and age. So it was very interesting to see the differences there, where we could just be going balls to the wall every single day in a training session, whereas for some folks that weren't on it, you don't see that bounce back time as much.
yeah. But I think that is what I like about the gym. That's what I like about fitness is that no workout is the same. I can't just go 100% every day. When I go with 25%, I give it 25%. That's how I know. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So I don't think I would do well without those days, without those failures.
yeah. I think for me, I go pretty hard about 80% of the time in my own personal workouts. I don't sandbag it often, so it's either I'm going really hard or I'm just going hard. Um, yeah, I don't. The thing about that for me though is I feel like if were I on steroids, I would have to take it to such a degree where like it'd be almost like if you have a really fast car that you drive around, right? And you're just driving on the main streets and it's a sports car, but you obey the traffic laws, you do the speed limit, you go on the highway, it's a little faster, but you largely don't speed. Versus if you just take it to a track and every single day you're running time trials and you're trying to drive as fast as possible, trying to win races and stuff like that, which obviously is going to wear down your car a little bit quicker. That's a metaphor for the body there. So it's definitely an interesting thing. So when you talk about going through in your fat loss phase, like what were some of the meals that became like the pillars of your diet at that point?
During my fat loss phase or my prep phase?
Uh, let's go both, a couple of each.
I would say it's also like a great evolution kind of concept. When I was going through my fat loss phase, I had three priorities. One, make sure that every meal or every plate had a protein, a carb, and a healthy fat on it, and eat when you're hungry, and eat before and after the gym. Carbs before, protein after. Um, as long as I did all that, I knew that I was making enough significant change to be able to lose the weight, because it wasn't pizza and cheesesteaks and fries every meal. But as far as prep goes, turning your logic to machine, body is the machine. I need to do nothing but fuel it for the next 16 weeks. Um, you're just making sure you're eating at the right times of the day. And if you keep this idea that protein helps build muscle, carbs gives you energy, and fats sustain your internal organs, that I lost my train of thought. keeping up with that all day long and trying to figure out, like, okay, I should have the bulk of my carbs in the morning because I go to the gym around this time. I need to make sure that I eat protein after I come back, but I'm lifting and I'm already low on carbs and I haven't eaten since 8 o'clock last night. So I want to up the carbs a little bit more so I have a little bit more energy for my workout. I'm going to work out at this point of the day so that I can have my meals all around it and I make sure that I don't go hungry, which is a lie all on its own because you're just hungry all throughout prep. But it's kind of just like trying to stick to doing the same exact thing every single day. And if you do have to switch it up, you're planning it days in advance because if not, you're just going to spiral.
Why would you say it's important to make sure you're doing the same thing every single day? Especially in terms of like nutrition.
Because there is so much more to worry about besides the routine. You know, if you're going to go into prep, you're already disciplined, you're already a conditioned person in the sense of lifestyle. If not, that needs to be the first thing that you figure out. And from my stance, at least, because I did bring in a nice physique to prep, but there is still so much more work to be done. So I knew that I wanted to go super heavy, balls to the wall in the gym, knowing that I could, really put on hopefully some good muscle. I had never used any kind of supplement to gain muscle before I started with a monohydrate creatine, which was the first week of prep. So I had no idea like what it was going to do, if it was going to help or not. Like I knew that it was kind of up to me too. So that's where I wanted to put all of my focus. So I knew that I needed to figure out something that was going to help me out throughout the day because lowering your carbs, I mean, I wasn't tracking, but I was probably eating somewhere like 250 to 300 grams of carbs per day before I started prep. So to go from that to 130 grams a day is like not only for coming from an Italian girl, first of all, who loves
Mm.
carbs, but coming from somebody who is now lifting heavier than I ever have and having half the energy to do it, it was just super important to get on a routine early and not change it up.
Carbs are amazing. That's why my podcast is called Talk
Oh,
Carby
yeah.
to Me. Pasta is my thing. Like that, like pasta and rice are like the two carbs I consume the most.
I love bread. One of my best friends has been baking lately. It's the best thing that ever happened to me. I love like a piece of like sourdough bread with like butter on it.
Is that what everyone did during the lockdowns? Just learn how to make bread? Because it seems like largely
It seems that way.
most people that I know are like, oh yeah, I started making bread. It's been amazing, and it's like that's what you did. There,
They're always so proud of their starters. They're like, "Look at my starter. Isn't it beautiful?" It's like, "No, it looks like a pile of yeast."
yeah. I don't. I don't like bread just in general. Like
Oh,
it's nothing like fitness related. Like if I go out to dinner at like an Italian restaurant, like I can appreciate the bread. Like I'm there for it. However, I don't go out to eat that often. On one of my episodes, I was talking to someone and we had like a what are your top five carbs? And bread was in hers. In mine, there was no bread. However, there were Uncrustables. And I got a lot of flack for having Uncrustables. And like one of my clients tells me all the time, like, because I'll eat one before I train her at like 6 a.m. because I'm not going to make a real breakfast. And then I work out and then I go home and then I start my normal meal. And there's like, oh, it's like, I have girl dinner, boy dinner. It's like toddler breakfast. That's your protein shake and your Uncrustable. And then the Baltimore Ravens are in the playoffs, and it came out. They must have been doing like some kind of inventory, but daily that football team eats 30 to 75 Uncrustables a day.
I bet. I bet.
Yeah. So I was like, yes, I'm
That's a
validated
grown
now.
man snack. It is.
Yeah. It's
That's who
amazing.
eats it. 3-year-olds and like 25-year-old men.
So you obviously have clients, you have your program, She Shred, which is a great name. Talk to you a little about that and like what does it look like as someone going through that process?
I typically like to take brand new to the gym in person first, but eventually I will transition them online. So my day is mostly made up of me making online programs. I would say I take maybe 2 to 3 in person clients per day, so about 2 to 3 hours. Um, and then I have my she shreds, which are literally my heart and soul, that I do 3 times a week. One morning class, I'll do a night class, and then I'll do a weekend class.
What does the program entail, and like what do people get from it?
So online is like the best way to go with me because you get meal plan that changes or a macro count depending on how comfortable you are. We do weekly weigh-ins and photos. We do 5 exercises per week, so like a full schedule. And then we do like monthly check-ins on FaceTime. Either I sit here with them and talk, about anything. Sometimes it's quite literally a therapy session. Sometimes it's let's talk about food. Sometimes it's me in the gym showing them, form that they're not feeling comfortable with, or the other way around, them showing me form and me trying to like guide them. So like that's the best way to go. That's like I'm committed to this. I know it's going to happen. Like have been going to the gym for a while and I'm not seeing any results. Like I need some guidance. If there's somebody who feels the way that I used to, where it's like I simply cannot go to the gym. My anxiety is on 1,000. Like I cannot make it in there. I'll have them come in person with me, and it's just like starting, just kind of trying to get one habit out of the way. I have an appointment with the gym. I'm going to make that appointment with the gym. That's pretty much the only goal, and to get there and move around. That was a big philosophy for me while I was losing the weight and like kind of figuring out what movement was what and how to lose weight and things like that. Was if I can either get anything done today, go for a walk, or I can get nothing done, but I need to make sure that fitness is some kind of habit in my life. So that's really kind of what all I ask out of my in-person clients. If I see that they're, really sticking to it, I probably will move them into online. And then She Shred is just a community. Like it's women coming together. We talk, we, you know, gossip, I guess. It's just like sweat and chit chat. It's just like a party more. It's not structure and lifestyle changes, but it does serve the same purpose where it's I have an appointment with the gym, but it's also like the gym can be fun kind of thing.
It's kind of like your tribe. It's kind of like a little bit almost like book club, where it's like, hey, we're going to meet on Friday and talk about
It
like
is like a book club,
cha-
yeah.
chapter 7, and it's like, oh well, I can't be the person that didn't understand, that didn't do this, and
And it's just amazing because the women who come in there are always saying something like, I signed up for this other like women's only class and it felt more like it felt bitter. It's nice to come to a class where it's like you don't know everybody that comes into the class. And one of my favorite things is finding a friend at the gym. So I have clients from, old and new that are not with me anymore. They've gone to concerts together. They've been in each other's weddings. Like it's amazing to see like two people that I know, you know, become friends and find somebody else to like connect with. It's really nice, especially over something that I'm so passionate about. It's nice to see.
yeah, the buddy system is so important in the fitness community. I've talked about this a lot on the podcast. I am a firm believer of the iron sharpens iron belief. Workouts just go better when you have someone with you, especially on days where maybe you're a little tired, things aren't moving well, maybe you don't have like the uptick, the dynamic between the person that you're with, right, keeping you accountable, keeping you motivated, keeps you going better, right? And especially if you guys are both progressing on days like where maybe you're lagging behind a little bit, like it's going to give you a little bit more energy, activation energy, if you will, to keep up, right, and work harder. And I find personally, I work out alone a lot, but when I do work out with my buddies, like the workouts are so much more intense. There's just a different level of like dedication that comes from it, which I think has a big impact on results and training in general.
Yeah, I also feel like that's the reason why it's so important to have a coach. Even myself as a coach, I miss my coach so much. Like just being able to text her and say, hey, I'm not feeling this today, or hey, I did this today, and have somebody, be as excited as I am for me. And of course, I have like my accountability people, but when somebody is like has to give you the attention and is there no matter what, it's such a nice feeling. Even though I am that way, where I'm like, I very much enjoy being at the gym alone, and sometimes I feel like just my friends, I sometimes walk away from it thinking like, okay, that was nice to like catch up, but a 5 minutes rest between each set is not really what I'm trying to do here.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. It turns into almost like a coffee shop sometimes, depending on
Yeah.
the personality of your gym. If I'm someone who's newer to exercise, right? Give me your top 5 exercises that I should be doing if I want to build muscle.
If you want to build muscle, I would say it depends on, what area you would want to build muscle in. But just as a woman, and speaking on the majority of women that I speak to and their goals, certainly hip thrusts. Hip thrusts are something that I probably just started doing when I started prep, and it is one of the biggest mistakes of my life. Um, I want to say that the right answer and the answer that people are looking for is always going to be some kind of barbell squat. But I would send somebody to a different machine, maybe a hack squat, or something like that, so that they are able to put up some weight and feel good about it without, worrying too much about, um, what am I trying to say? Injury. Um, Wide grip pull downs are always like one of the first things that I add into somebody who's new to working out, routine, just because every woman is notoriously looking for a smaller waist, and that's the way to get it. A wider back makes for a smaller waist. Um, and I'm not sure. I would probably say some kind of like split squat, but those are tough to give a new person, because it that could very well be the thing that makes them never go back into the gym.
Yeah, I've actually seen that happen firsthand. At the previous gym that I worked at, I was the setup man, right? So you joined my gym. Chances are, if you were a morning person, you were going to speak to me, and I was going to introduce you to the gym, what we had to offer, introduce you to the training staff, talk about you, your goals. I had this one woman one time, and I passed her off to one of our trainers on staff. And then I got a phone call like 2 days later. She's like, "Yeah, I'm actually at the hospital." And I was like, "Oh, what the hell? What happened?" Like, "Oh, we were doing these step ups." It was like her first day. She was in her late 60s. And I was like, "Wait, they're like a lot of them?" She's like, "Yeah, like we did like 3 or 4 sets, like 10 reps. We were doing it with weight, and like first time ever in life working out, let alone like in a while." And never came back to the gym ever again. So we had to take care of her training package. But it's definitely a good point you just mentioned, especially with the beginner. Single leg exercises, although needed and important, and they serve their purpose, they can be quite traumatic for a beginner to put it that way.
The first leg workout is going to be traumatic, though, no matter what. Like, anytime somebody leaves after having a first workout with me, I'm like, please, for the love of God, before you decide that you do not want to come back, go eat some protein, because you are going to absolutely be on fire tomorrow. You're going to hate me, can curse me out, text me, that's fine. But know that it's not going to be like that every other time. Like, I have to like warn them, or not. I've seen them not come back so many times because of how much pain they're in. And it's just like, it's normal. It's normal. It doesn't happen forever. Obviously, we would all quit if it did, you know?
Yeah, I remind people that a lot. I haven't been sore in years. Like it's
And you
been
miss it.
I do miss it. So every time someone's like, I'm like, "Hey, how you feeling after the other day?" Like, "Oh my god, I'm so sore," and I'm like, "Oh, I'm so jealous of you." Like, "What do you
Yeah.
mean?" I was like, "It's not a sensation that I'm familiar with." Now, if I get an injury or something like that, then yeah, I could feel that for sure. But just that general soreness, that achiness, I just don't largely have it, which I kind of miss it. So what's next for you? So you win your show, right? You're killing it. Like, what's coming down the pipe for you?
I want to compete again. I so when you place in WBFF, you are invited to Worlds where you can go and, compete in Worlds. And the next step technically is to get the crown so that I would then be Miss Bikini, whatever. Probably New Jersey, just because it's closer. But you could travel anywhere and go, and win the crown. So I'm after the crown next, and then I will probably move on to Worlds from there, just depending on where I'm at. The goal is to try and do it all before 35, because 35, I'm pretty sure, I'm not 100% sure, but I'm after 35 is a new category, 35 plus. So I don't know if I would still be eligible to try and win a world title um, as bikini open if I were over 35. So the plan is to do it with all 5 years, but who knows? Right now, I keep saying I'm going to take a year off and grow and get back to it. But the more that I say it, the more it feels like a lie.
Mm,
So who knows? I might decide to compete again before the year is up. But I want to do something big. I don't think that I want to. I've grown up going to Atlantic City my entire life, so it didn't feel like I was so familiar with even like the casino that we were in, and it was just nothing felt foreign enough to me. I might want to travel a little bit further to compete this time.
I gotcha. Miss Bikini sounds a lot like bodybuilding meets Miss Congeniality. Like, will there be
Yes.
when you get the crown, will there be a speech where you thank everyone for world peace? And
No. No. I mean, I'm sure I'll make an Instagram post thanking, but no. But they do crown you on stage, and it's just a beautiful moment. When I was at the competition this year, the girl who won the crown in my division in bikini, first of all, she's just absolutely stunning, but I see myself in her when I see that like photo of her getting the crown on her head. And yeah, because I don't get my sash until I compete again. So I am a pro and I have a pro status and I have the pro card, but I won't get the sash until I register for another show, which is crazy. But
interesting.
the crown they give to you right on stage.
Yeah, we got to get that sash. You got to sign up today.
Yeah.
So where can people find you?
I am strictly on Instagram. I don't know how I got banned from TikTok, but it wasn't my speed anyway. I do miss the scrolling, but yeah, I am at fit.by_Trish on Instagram.
We should have led with the TikTok story. There's got to be something there. What'd you do?
I have no idea. I never really posted on TikTok just because I already had like I wouldn't call it a following, but I had like some 2,000 followers on Instagram, and I was just editing videos on Instagram anyway, so posting them to Instagram, and I could never figure out how to like post on both. So I just was like, okay, I'm going to go dive hard into Instagram and move away from TikTok. And then now I still get the emails. Like people keep sending me TikToks and they're hilarious and I want to open them, but it's in Spanish and I can't read why I was logged out and it won't let me log back in. So one day I'll learn Spanish and I will get back into TikTok so I can open those.
Yeah, you use code CARBY at Babbel for 15% off your next Spanish subscription.
I love
Yeah.
that.
Now that'd be pretty fun. I should make that happen. Matt, make that happen.